Point, Commissioner, just as a formality, you should adjourn the 11 o'clock special meeting.
Thank you. We will now adjourn the 11 o'clock special meeting, and we will reconvene the 9 o'clock meeting. We now move to the items for approval and discussion, beginning with item 15. And so we'll just begin with item 15. Bid number 491, furnishing and delivering cable, 600 volts underground and overhead, and miscellaneous wire and cable.
Bassam presented. Good morning. Still morning.
Yes, barely.
Bassam Abu Shakra, Power System Engineering. This bid here is fixed for 600 volts underground and overhead cable. This is what we normally use to bring power to residential customers and small commercial customers. The specification has 65 items, and it was divided into 6 groups. And based on lessons learned and past experience, we get more bidders when we divide them into separate groups, and they can be awarded separately. And as a result, we received 6 bids, and we're recommending award to 2 different companies. Now, this contract has, because it's tied to metals, and metals are very volatile, has quarterly price adjustment based on the American metal market indices for copper and aluminum. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions? Is there a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 16, bid number 515, dumping privileges for the dumping of dirt, asphalt, and concrete. Award to CalMat Company, DBS Vulcan Materials Company in Sun Valley.
Good morning, Jonathan Leung, Water Distribution Division.
And Gwendolyn Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services.
So what this proposed contract allows us to do is to take inert materials from our construction sites, most typically the trench excavations that we have in the street, and take those to inert and engineered landfills. And what that enables us to do is then obtain nearly 100% recycling of our inert materials from our construction sites. And that well exceeds the typical targets that are set for construction debris that are at 50 or 75%. So that's a very good thing for us. There are a limited number of sites, so we only received 1 bid on this particular contract. These sites are typically sand and gravel material quarries or mining sites, and then they end up turning those into land reclamation sites. We hear a lot about water reclamation, but there's land reclamation sites as well. So there are a finite number. There's 3 independently owned and operated ones here in LA County. We actually end up with contracts with all of them. But in spite of having only 1 bid, the price is pretty advantageous for the DWP and its ratepayers. It's approximately $25 a load, or 15% lower than the published rates that the public gets. So there's a volume discount that we're receiving there. From another standpoint, when you're factoring in the lowest ultimate costs, factoring in both the dumping and the traffic and the truck trips, it's the lowest cost alternative for us for most portions of the valley and the western part of the metro area.
Comments, questions? Mr. Nichols?
Just wanted to point one thing out. It might not have been real clear in the letter, because I know the board has been interested in past questions as to what alternatives have we evaluated in some of these cases. And the staff has from time to time looked at what's the prospect of, if we're always in the streets, we're always getting these materials, we're always going to have to find places for this, what about just creating our own site? And just based on all the special permits and requirements that are associated with that. I know, Jonathan, you might want to just give a highlight with regard to our findings on that.
Thanks. Yeah, so again, as kind of mentioned, really you're looking at a combination of both the dumping cost itself as well as the transport costs. And for us, in this particular area in the San Fernando Valley, we're currently yielding about 7,500 to 8,500 truckloads per year. Once you get to a threshold of maybe 12,000 loads, it might be more cost neutral or cost effective for us to maybe operate one of our own sites at maybe one of our facilities in the valley for that purpose. But as Mr. Nichols explained, there are some permit preparation is almost maybe a year, 2-year process. You might have to amend your CUP or do an environmental impact report. So there's no guarantee that the permitting would go through. Aside from that, going with building and safety, getting a geotechnical permit, setting up provisions to monitor and control those activities, having some staff and equipment to operate. So it's not necessarily a slam dunk currently, but if we forecast maybe at some point down in the future where we get to the threshold of about 12,000 loads, then it might be an economic investment.
And when might we get to that threshold?
Well, right now, if you're looking ahead at our 3 to 5 year capital improvement program, a lot of our water infrastructure projects, main lines and trunk lines, those are occurring in the valley. They may be ramping up slightly, but I don't believe that's going to cross us into that 10,000, 12,000 truckload point yet. But we'll continue collaborating with the power system if they have some projects planned, transmission projects, et cetera, that might tip the scales more to the higher end.
Well, it's good to know that's being considered, and it's being considered far out into the future. Questions, comments? Is there a motion to support this bid?
I'll move.
Is there a second? Those in favor? Aye. Unanimous approval. Thank you. Item number 17, amendment number 1 to agreement number 47111-3 for General Electric International, Inc., professional services and parts for GE turbine generators.
Commissioners, if I can, Ken Silver is going to do a little detailed presentation on what has happened, but just to kind of give you a background on this item is this is a Haynes Unit 9. It's a combined cycle unit. On October 14th, we had a unit trip. And usually we have these units trip, for several reasons. But in this case, we had to open up the unit because of the way the vibration came in and the way the machine was behaving. We knew that this was going to be something bigger than just the normal repairs. So the crews have dismantled the unit, and we've done. You'll see some pictures of what the condition of that unit is. It is an important unit for us to have before the next summer peak. Just on the financial side, although we're asking for $30 million addition on the contract, we do have asset insurance that has a $10 million deductible, and we are collaborating with GE and the insurance companies to kind of figure out the final repair process and the methodology for us to recover our losses. We are doing a root cause analysis. We don't have the final report exactly what happened to this unit, but we will find out in the meantime, and Ken will cover a little bit more. We are doing some borescope tests on the existing similar units to make sure that we don't have an imminent failure as we had on this one, that we could kind of prevent by having a intrusive inspection done on those and make sure that this doesn't happen again. And we are collaborating with GE on this area. So with that, I'll have Ken go through the details, and I will answer any questions you have.
Thank you.
We just wanted to briefly show you what happened to this Haynes Unit 9. Haynes Unit 9 is part of a combined cycle with 2 other units, Haynes 8, 9, and 10. A combined cycle plant is where there's two units, gas turbines that generate, and their exhaust heat is recaptured to create additional energy, so they're very, very efficient. So as Aram said, this unit was operating in normal operation. Little history: the unit went in operation in January of 2005. The unit itself is 170 megawatt capacity, but because that heat is captured in another unit, it's about a 300 megawatt loss. We did complete an overhaul of this unit in June of last year. It's a little hard to see the diagram, but just this is showing the unit from left to right. The air would enter on the left-hand side where the compressor is. That's the green air. Enters through the blue area into the green area. The air is compressed before combustion. That's where we believe the failure occurred. Just another diagram. The green area is the 18-stage compressor, and we believe the failure occurred at the very front end of that unit. So on October 14th, the unit was operating at full load. The trip was initiated by high vibration, and the unit came to a very quick stop. These units normally coast down slowly. It came to a very quick stop, which was evidence that there was a severe problem. The initial inspection looking just through the inlet, showed some damage. You can see there in the center of the picture, damage to the compressor blades. This required a full disassembly of the unit to really analyze the full damage. Just a couple pictures where in the process of removing the compressor case or the lid off of that. In this picture, on the left hand is the compressor as it was found after the casing was removed, and you can see the damaged blades. The picture on the right was the unit being reinstalled after the overhaul, and you can see there that the blades are all nice and clean and straight. So what we believe happened is the compressor failure sent pieces of broken compressor blades down through the unit because there's a suction on that compressor end. The pieces were drawn in through the unit. There was additional damage to the unit beyond the compressor stage from those broken pieces. So in order to repair the unit, we're in the process of completely disassembling it. The turbine rotor will be shipped out for complete finishing, to be completely dismantled and repairs made. Again, there's just another breakaway of all the different components of the unit that need the compressor, the hot gas path, and the power turbine that will all need to be reviewed and see if there's any damage to them. A little more close-up pictures, you can see the damaged and tears on the blades, and some blades are actually missing. The picture on the left is showing missing blades right there in the forefront, and that was, we believe, at this point we believe that was the initiating damage, although we're not sure what the cause of the failure was. And the right-hand picture is showing basically that same blade missing. So moving forward, we're going to be completing the incident investigation. That will require the complete dismantling of it and metallurgy tests, which we're doing in conjunction with GE, to see if we can determine what the root cause of failure was. We're also doing on Haynes Unit 10, which is its companion unit. It's out for a regularly scheduled overhaul, and we're inspecting that unit to see if there's any evidence of an imminent failure there. We have 2 additional units at our Valley Generating Station that we'll be looking at in January when they come down for overhaul. The quickest repair that we've processed is will be to obtain a new turbine and reassemble that, put it back in the unit. What that does is it restores the unit to basically like new and will allow us to defer a routine maintenance. We had since the previous maintenance a year and a half ago, we had used up about 25% of the life of the unit. So this will allow us to defer maintenance on that unit, so we do gain some savings there in the long run. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. Have we experienced something like this before?
I don't think we have on this particular style of unit. We've heard in our conversation with GE that this particular unit has, throughout their fleet in the country, there have been a couple of other failures. This is the first on our system. This unit was installed in 2005, but we've heard similar. We can't call it similar because we don't know what the root cause is, but we've seen failures of this type of units other places.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not sure how relevant it is at the moment, but How often do these things happen? How often do they happen to these particular units? What are the alternatives? Types of things like that.
So usually, this is where the collaboration between GE, because this is a GE unit, is to figure out exactly if it's something that could be retrofitted, and it's very important for us to work together to find out exactly the root cause of what caused this failure. And if it's I'm just making an example, but let's say it's a metal fatigue at a certain point that's pointing to that root cause, that we could work with GE for a design change for those types. We could go in and retrofit the existing units. But what Ken and his staff are doing right now is putting additional intrusion inspections on the existing units to make sure that we go and scan the unit to make sure we don't have any preconditions that tells us that something is going on with those units. So that process is in place to make sure we prevent a catastrophic failure before something happens. So we'll find more about what that reveals, but we have borescopes. We go into the units, look at the possible points of failures from our experience and with working with GE and other utilities to figure out exactly what we can do to eliminate that failure.
Are there alternatives to GE?
There are none, because this is a GE unit, and the contract that we have is in place is a GE contract for us to have spare parts, and it was meant to address these emergency conditions. And the only thing is the limit of the money is what we're asking this board to raise the limit so we can do the dismantling, the assembly, and putting the unit back on service.
And in our negotiations with GE going in, what kind of protections do we have in the event of problems such as this?
As far as
failure,
we have recourse, based on what we find, from a manufacturer perspective. GE has been very responsive, with the technical support and everything that they could give us resources for us to figure this out. But it is out of warranty. The unit is out of warranty. The financial protection we have is the insurance that we have and the deductible that we have right now, that we will work with the insurance company to recover some of the losses. But I think the recommendations, and I concur 100%, is rather because of the extent of the damage. It is the right choice to make to replace as much as the core as possible to make sure we kind of take any of the risks out of the repair process.
Commissioner Fleming?
How many of these kind of exact or fairly close turbines do we have?
We have 4, including this one. We have 4.
We have 4, and we haven't experienced this kind of catastrophic failure with any of the others.
This is the first one.
This is the first.
When it came out of service, who did when it came out in 2012 to be refurbished? Who did that?
We have a combination crews. And that's what the contracts that we have with GE provides us with technical assistance, spare parts, and we have combined efforts between our crews that dismantle the units, take the covers off and do a lot of the dismantling and the lifting, and then GE technical support that comes with it, because they have to make sure that the spare parts that they sell us and the technical process for us to install, they are part of that combined crews that we have to put this.
When we do that big major maintenance, there's no warranty that comes along with that.
We could check on that, but my readings of it, I haven't read it lately, but it is a technical support. We take the lead on the overhaul because it's our unit, but their technical support is with us for them to approve any changes to the drawings or anything that we do on the site. They have to approve it because of the reliability that comes with it.
What's the timeline for finding getting the results as to why this failed?
The DWP portion of it will probably be done by the end of the year. The metallurgy is in the hand. GE's taking the lead on that, and we still have to finish removing all of these blades from the unit before they can do that testing. So I checked with the engineers this morning, and they expect it will be after the first of the year before we have those results back.
It's a pretty laborious method. They basically have to reassemble all the parts that fell off basically reassemble the whole thing and then go through a systematic root cause analysis to figure out exactly what happened.
And then my last question would be, once you determine all of that, is it possible to rebuild this turbine so that then you have it sitting on the shelf? If you have a future failure of another unit, you'd have this one ready to put in instead of having to go back and purchase a brand new one.
That was actually one of the options, but it was faster to do it, to purchase the new one, and it also, as I indicated, it defers the next maintenance for us.
No, I get
So that's
purchasing the new
good.
one to
Yeah.
replace this one, but once you've done that, you've got this kind of
It is on the table.
piece sitting
Yeah.
there. You might as well. Is there value in refurbishing that one, given whatever you'll know about the failure, and keeping it set aside, given if we experience another one of these?
Yeah, it is on the table for we have to get to a point where GE can say this unit can be rebuilt and be put in service. Right. So until we get those points, and one of the options that we looked at is because it takes so much time for us to get to that decision point, and we need to get this unit online before the summer. This option was the fastest and the best risk abatement that we could have done to get this unit back on. But it is on the table for us to see whether we can salvage that.
For the future. Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Barrett.
The additional $30 million, was the 17 million, was that, where did that come from, and then how did you get to the 47?
The initial $17 million of the contract was just an estimate of what we would need. We've actually used up, I believe, about $9 million of that 17 for various jobs on other units. We have a lot of GE equipment in the system, so we've used about 9 of that 17 already.
And that was an estimate?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then you got to the 47 because it was beyond what you thought it was going to be to repair?
Well, the repairs on this unit will be in excess of $20 million. So we don't have enough money in the contract as it is. So the $30 million was to cover the known costs plus an allowance in case there were additional costs, and also not to deplete the contract, because we know we'll need GE services on other units over the course of the next year or two.
Do you expect it to go to the full 47 million?
We don't expect to go that. There's a contingency that we added, because the way I think your question is, how did we come up with the 17 million initially? So we have our SIRs, our scheduled inspection and maintenance cycles on each of those units. From our experience and the recommendations of GE, we know we have to dismantle and replace parts on those units as we do the maintenance on them. So we construct all those expenditures on the cash flow with the technical support and our crews and getting the job done. We add some contingency in that, but this condition, we never allowed in that $17 million for a catastrophic failure, which is by itself is going to cost us about $20 million, including the parts and the labor and installation and commissioning.
Thank you.
I did have a question on the finances. How much of the $20 million do we expect to get back from insurance after taking our SIR and deductible out?
We have a $10 million deductible in our policy, and the insurance...
That's per occurrence?
That's for our commercial insurance program.
It's not aggregate, that's per occurrence?
Per incident.
Per incident, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The insurer will most likely take the position that they'll be responsible for the least cost repair option. So that we would get a portion of the recovery of the new turbine. It would be a negotiation with them, but we have looked at we have the figures, and we would get recovery of several million dollars, most likely.
So we're net out of pocket about 13 or 14, or is my math wrong? Or?
We'd be net out of pocket the $10 million deductible, plus the differential between the least cost option and the recommended option of buying a new turbine.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Yeah, well, actually, now that you're talking, Phil, on the, are things like this in our budget for emergencies? Do we have, do we have a reserve for things like this too?
We do have a self-insurance fund in recognition of the fact that we do have some rather substantial deductibles that we self-insure for.
So how big is that?
We do have some funding. We have various funds depending on the type of casualty. We have property, commercial, et cetera. I don't have the figure committed to memory, but it's certainly within the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
Thank you.
If I can just expand on that a bit, and the approach that we generally use when we do that is we take out of that fund to fund these activities, and then we will replenish that fund over, depending on how deeply we've had to dip into that, and we replenish that over a year or a couple of years to get that back up to a level again in a manner that doesn't have a material rate impact.
Is there a motion to approve this authorization?
I move.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move to item 18, where there is a speaker's card.
Okay, the first speaker is Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, also Sierra Club. Owens Valley. How many people have ever actually worked in Owens Valley? I have. Groundwater. We established that there wasn't enough groundwater to sell to LA. They were very happy because the people in Owens Valley get kind of sick and tired of LA. Here's a demonstration project. What are they going to demonstrate? The ability of construction of solar panels and production of electricity in Owens Valley. How many panels will eventually be built? Depends on the demonstration, maybe. We're quite concerned in Sierra Club regarding the use of wildlands for green projects when you consider how many roofs occur in the city of Los Angeles, in the grid, in the basin, here. Maybe the demonstration should, establish feasibility. But then also, how many kilowatts do we want from Owens Valley rather than generating them here? So I would highly recommend that the demonstration have an element in it as to where else can we put those solar panels to have a equal or better use of existing destroyed environments, rather than going to the Mojave, going to Owens Valley, and messing up more area where we've already messed it up for almost 100 years. So, highly recommend adding a demonstration as to compare it against building them in LA on multifamily dwellings, on single-family dwellings. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
I have a couple of procedural
We do have
questions.
one more.
Oh, we have another
speaker.
card?
Yeah, one more
18?
speaker. Bram Siegel.
Yes, most of the comments are sort of similar to the one I mentioned when I spoke before. The one issue I didn't quite have a chance to say was whatever the RFP specifies, they should have the specification for the quality control and the specifications of the solar panels if they use them, because they can go between 7% to 28% efficient. And there's also a power temperature coefficient which affects it, and also the type of tracking. All this can affect the energy produced by a factor of 30%. And the life cycle costing on it is going to affect by maintenance as well. And plus the grid stability issues, which I mentioned before, are a major issue, even though it may be overlooked. So the contractors, which I've seen bid on large-scale solar systems, are supposed to have a grid connection study, but all they look at there is power, not stability. And those are the issues I want to bring up. So I don't know who I could support. I've been doing this for 15 years as a public service, but I think it's important to get the right people to know what the issues are before you have a big problem.
Thank you. I don't know who to direct this question to. Mr. Benjamin, is there a time requirement on this lease issue?
This is the extent of the lease is a 20-year lease.
And is there some reason to be dealing with this now? Can this be deferred?
It could be deferred, yes.
Commissioner, could I suggest we have a short presentation that will give you an overview of actually what this demonstration is about, and I think it won't take very long.
Okay.
But I think it would be helpful to give you a little bit more understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish through this demonstration project. There is a long-standing history of persons, including prior general managers, who have sought to find a means to determine whether it's possible to put solar on Owens Lake as a means for dust mitigation. There are others who have asked the question that since we have put as much gravel as we have on the one area, picture of which is in here, whether that might form a basis, since it is a disturbed habitat, going to the prior commentators' points, since that is now a disturbed habitat, by putting gravel as dust mitigation, whether there might be a possibility of putting solar on top of that in a way that doesn't impact the environment as much as if it were in unaltered lands. So I think we can get a bit of overview, but tell you why we're doing this, the scale of this, and then I think it might put into context a little bit better your question.
Okay.
Don't mind. I don't think it'll take that long.
I'll just take a short period here to go over the whole premise of testing these questions, and Dr. Clyde, Dr. Williams had put in some of these questions. Whether this is the right place to put it, whether it's feasible to do it. Several years ago, we have conducted lab tests that basically took all these technical questions and tried to simulate a solar installation in the test lab environment to make sure that we have the shading, we have the height, we have the angles of these solar panels, and the way they can be assembled together to generate electricity, and also help with the dust mitigation on the lake bed process. So with all these requirements that we had put in place, a lot of interaction between the angles of the panels and the situation, the arrangements, and the energy generation amounts have been tested in the test lab. What this phase of the plan is to take the test lab results and pick a very small area of the lake and kind of actually build a 0.5 megawatt generation on a small portion of the lake to kind of validate some of these points and to actually see the actual construction of how these things would play with the requirements that we talked about. So as you know, I mean, and some of you have been on the lake bed, the soil and the amount that soil can support is very different than any other soil conditions that we've seen anywhere else. And one of the things that we wanted to do is to test the different types of foundations that could be put on that soil in order for it to be stable and sustain the wind pressures and sustain the movements that could happen in that area, and make sure that we don't lose that construction. So as we do the test pilot, a lot of these questions are going to be answered by the data that we gathered from this test area. We've done some drillings, we've done some bearing tests on the soil itself. We had a lot of questions about the metals and the validity of having material that could be used in this assembly in that environment and that corrosive environment that could withstand all the elements of that lake bed as we construct these things, and how long would they last as a long-term project. The location of the the test bed is at the north end of the lake bed, and it is about 20 acres of land lease that we would enter into, but we are not going to use all 20 acres of it. This is a small half a megawatt installation, so we will use a portion of that 20 megawatts. The interconnection of that generation that will come out of this test bed, we have a belt of a 34,000 volt transmission line that goes around the lake. So we have a station adjacent to the lot that will tie into the distribution grid that we have. So basically, any generation coming out of there will be integrated into our system. We've done experimentation in the lab on the types of soil foundations that could be used. So we're going to experiment in this on the real site. We're going to experiment on what's called a spread footing type, basically putting a lot of weight and anchoring down the support of the solar panels with a concrete blocks that would be put on the soil itself without doing an anchorage of that system. So hopefully when we experiment with these, as they are tied together, these panels and the foundations themselves, gives you a good indication of how this type of soil conditions would support a foundational configuration like this you see here. We also have, this is a different configuration, again the same concept of foundations on a very weak bearing soil type structures. We also have a couple of the different types of foundations that we want to do is actually puncturing through the topsoil and getting an anchor on the soil itself and seeing how those perform under these conditions with the wind velocities and the way they are tied together. So it is an extension of our test lab environment. It's meant to generate electricity with a lot of these questions that we had asked, whether this could be used as dust mitigation or it could help so all these questions that we had will be answered by a certain set of data that we would gather from this experiment, and we could put bring in a recommendation at the end of this process, and then we'll go from there.
I withdraw my question.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 19. Do we have a speaker card?
No.
Just thought I'd ask.
We have a brief presentation on Apex purchase of the power plant, and Webster will do the presentation.
For the record, Mike Webster, Assistant Director of our Power System Planning and Development. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background on this particular recommendation we're making to purchase a combined cycle power plant as part of a strategy that was identified in our 2010 Integrated Resource Plan and has been updated since then to give us an ability to exit Navajo Generating Station, which is a coal-fired power plant, early. We must exit Navajo Generating Station by 2019. That is required under SB 1368. And so we put in plans in place so that we could maximize the value of Navajo and at the same time give us the proper runway to stabilize our system for the reliability of our entire power system. So in that integrated resource plan, we recommended that we divest of Navajo by 2015. And we are currently in negotiations with Salt River Project that we hope to bring to this board as a recommendation in January of 2014 in order to exit from our share of Navajo. This particular power plant is designed to replace some of the capacity, and we're going to talk about the difference between energy and capacity. Now, there's some benefits of exiting Navajo early, is that one is we retain more value if we were to sell Navajo now than if we were to wait until 2019. So our negotiating position weakens if we were to wait till the very, very end. Also, we could find that replacement energy and replacement capacity 4 years from now is much, much more expensive in the marketplace, and we run the risk of trying to tighten our transition into a very, very short runway, which would put our system at risk. And also, this particular strategy gives us some options for future negotiations related to what we might do with IPP. And so the strategy to replace coal is not coal for gas. The strategy to replace coal is first with energy efficiency, and we've already deployed 1,500 gigawatt hours of energy efficiency and will continue to deploy energy efficiency moving forward. Next, what we want to do is, after we serve our customers with energy efficiency, we're building out the renewables program. We have over 900 megawatts of renewables on our system. We talked a little bit earlier about the wind portfolio we have, our first geothermal project coming online, and we have some very large-scale solar projects coming online. And that will provide the energy component. And then last, we needed an ability to firm up those renewables and provide the capacity that was necessary, and that's what this recommendation is today, is a combined cycle power plant to replace some of that capacity. And so the Apex plant is a approximately 500 megawatt plant, and it replaces the capacity of 477 megawatts of our coal. So when the wind's not blowing or the solar is not generating, it's a cloudy day, we still have the capacity. But Navajo, being a base-loaded plant with a capacity factor of about 90%, is replaced by a combined cycle plant with a capacity factor that's going to hover somewhere around the neighborhood of 20% for our native load. So the energy out of the plant is much, much less because of what we're deploying, but the capacity is still there to back it up if we were to need it in the future. And this gives you a kind of a visualization of our system. And if you look where Apex is located, is this line right here. That is the Navajo Crystal McCullough line, and our Navajo plant is located at the end of that line right there. It comes through this area right where Apex is located and then down into our system. So from a use of transmission system, it's a great fit for our transmission, so that SRP, they can potentially bring the coal-fired power down south. Maybe there's a portion they can use here, but primarily they can bring it into their system in other places. And we can use our transmission rights to bring the power from Apex in. And then you see our Moapa Solar is a 250 megawatt project. It's located right next to the Crystal Station. And then we have Copper Mountain, which is located near the Marketplace McCullough stations. And so this Apex plant, in collaboration sort of with these solar projects, it will help firm up that solar capacity and is clustered in an area where we have crews and staff already and projects that are going into our system. And this has been a robust process. It started in 2011, where we did an RFI, request for information, to kind of get some ideas of what types of power projects might be out there, followed up in 2012 with a request for proposals. We got 19 responses to that RFP. We went through a process to narrow down those 19 to 4 shortlisted. They ranged in capacity from the 500 megawatts up to about 830 megawatts. We had combinations of existing units and new units, but we shortlisted existing units. What we found is that the market right now is really, really overbuilt. With the advent of renewables, that the market is quite long, and so the pricing is quite attractive for existing units. We also hired an outside consulting firm, Worley Parsons, to come in and really assist us in our review of those 4 stations to look for any fatal flaws, to help narrow our focus into one station. And the Apex plant after we finished our review, was the best fit, best value for our system, and was the most cost effective. If we were to build new, we might be spending in an order of magnitude between $1,000 to $1,200 per kilowatt, and this particular plant is $560 per kilowatt. Now, it wasn't all about price. It was a very robust analysis. It's an analysis that we've done on all of our renewables program. We applied this to this particular gas-fired generation, is we build a scoring matrix that looks at the interconnection costs, the price. Does it fit our system? Is it the right fit? Is it utilizing trained, qualified staff so we know that it's a quality plant? Is it connected to our transmission where we have excess capacity? And does it really kind of cluster with other power plants so we can use the same types of crews that would also manage the transmission, solar projects, et cetera? And we rank all of those factors together to come up with what is our best fit. And that's all consistent with the integrated resource plan. And through that robust analysis is how we ultimately concluded that Apex was the right plant for our system to replace Navajo. Now, some details on the Apex plant itself. In the winter, it's 550 megawatts, but in the summer, it's about 500 megawatts. When you count the very hottest day when we need the energy the most, we get about 500 megawatts out of that particular resource. It is a 2+1 combined cycle plant. It's about 10 years old, and it's about 30 miles northeast of Las Vegas, and the cost is $295 million. For the plant itself, we will plan to finance a little bit of additional for additions and betterments, and also to start planning for bringing this directly into our system. Right now, it's connected to the Nevada system. We would like to avoid some of the Nevada costs and then tie directly into our system and avoid those costs. So we'd like to do a transmission plan, and we'd have to build about a 10-mile transmission line to get into the Crystal station. Now, a little bit on SCAPA. We haven't been here before talking about a SCAPA project, but Southern California Public Power Authority was created for the planning, the financing, development, acquisition of various projects. We do this for the purpose of working together with other utilities. We do this for the purpose of financing these projects. So it is envisioned that SCAPA would enter into the asset purchase agreement with the developer who is selling the plant. They would issue the bonds, but LADWP would be the primary off-taker. Initially, we'll be 100% of the off-taker, so what we guarantee is that we will purchase all of that energy. Now, because we're the largest off-taker at 100%, we will be the operating agent and making the decisions related to the operations of the plant. Now, one very important reason we wanted to go with SCAPA is that it gives us the opportunity to allow other municipal utilities into the project. And this will become very important as they consider what they might want to do in their future as they replace coal, whether it is their plant in the Four Corners area or even for Intermountain. They may decide that they need to have some resource and want to replace it with this, and we can allow those other municipal utilities to come into the project, take a portion of that project, and it kind of mitigates some of our risk and helps our communities in that process. We've done a lot of projects with SCAPA. We've done the nuclear generating station with SCAPA, a lot of the large transmission projects with SCAPA, and more recently we've done quite a few renewables projects as utilities work together through SCAPA. So the contractual relationship is that you see SCAPA in the middle, and the developer is LS Power, who is selling the power project to SCAPA with an asset purchase agreement. To the right, you'll see the Las Vegas Valley Water Authority right here, is that they supply the water to the project. And so originally, the project only had about 13 years left of water supply. So we went in and renegotiated for 25 years of water supply so it matches the bonds. And so there is a separate water agreement for that 25 years. Now, originally, as part of the price of water is that this project needed to offer 25% of its capacity to Nevada entities. 25% of the capacity could include that peak summer day, and we would lose that capacity for our own native load customers' benefits. So we renegotiated that agreement to where now they have an off-peak agreement where they could use energy to offset some of their pumping load during off-peak hours. So our ratepayers get the full benefit of the capacity, and we really don't need all of the energy during off-peak hours. And so that goes to I forget the acronym. I can't read it. Southern, yeah. Energy Authority, I think it is. Silver State Energy Authority, thank you. So that off-peak energy goes to them. And then we have the power sales agreement, which is what we were bringing before you today for the offtake of energy from SCAPA. And SCAPA has other operating and maintenance agreements. So the Wood Group currently is the operating entity. That contract is in place. It is good through February of 2016. So it is something that will allow us to bridge and to decide how we want to operate that plant in the future. We do have termination rights. But these types of operating agreements with GE for any of the parts supply are in place. So when we take ownership, everything comes with it so that it's a fully functional operating plant. And then as we transition, we can decide how to really fully incorporate that into our system moving forward. We also wanted to do extensive due diligence on the plant. So while we selected this plant, we wanted to make sure that there were no skeletons in the closet, that we really went in and did that analysis. And so we had an insurance company come in and do a lost asset survey on the plant. We also hired an independent engineering firm, SAIC, to come in and really look at all the records and details of the plant to make sure it was operated and maintained properly, that all their permits were in place, that there was everything about the plant was what we thought we were purchasing. And they have issued a report that it is a good plant. It's been well run and maintained in the past. We also sent our teams out to the plant to do extensive surveys on the plant, on how they actually operated, and is it consistent with how we might operate a plant. And the reports have all been back positive as far as the quality of this particular plant. And so, in summary, it was an extensive process, RFP process, an extensive review and due diligence, and making sure that it was really the best fit for our system. And one of the things that we wanted to really make clear is that this is compliant with the Emissions Performance Standard, SB 1368. It is deemed compliant because any plant built before June of 2007 is deemed compliant as far as the carbon emissions output from the plant. It's not a base-loaded plant because it's really there to provide some of the energy, but also the capacity. So we were not going to hit a 60% threshold, which the state would define as that's base-loaded. If it's 60% or above, it would be a base-loaded plant. So we would like to make just one clarification because of the wording that was in the resolution on the fourth whereas. It currently reads, whereas the IRP has identified that divesting of Navajo Generating Station would require a new base-loaded fossil-fueled power plant to replace a portion of the Navajo Generating Station capacity and energy. Baseload is not the right word, and we want to make a clear signal to the state that we are not even close to the EPS thresholds here. We'd like to strike baseloaded and replace with reliable fossil fuel generation. Again, it's really about the capacity to back it up, the renewables and the energy efficiency that we're deploying. So with that change, we think that is more clear and doesn't raise any red flags for the state related to SB 1368. And that is our recommendation today.
A very helpful presentation. I just have one question, and you've kind of covered it, I think, but I'm not sure. In the event that we are successful in utilizing more renewables and need less gas, does the SCAPA arrangement and the arrangement with the others mean that we can essentially reduce what we decide we're going to take?
Right. The arrangement allows for the other municipal utilities to step in and take a portion from this plant. And so while we wanted to move forward and lock it in because we think that it's the right time to lock it in. Over the course of the next months or years, these other participants, and we've had, I believe, 2 to 3 formal requests to participate in this project, and we've had a couple of informal requests and interest to participate in the project. So we believe there is serious interest to take a portion of this.
What happens if all of the participants don't want all of the generating capacity? You just generate less.
So if there were no other participants?
No, you have others.
Okay.
But the combined demand is lower than anticipated.
Well, we actually, from LA's perspective, even if there were no other participants, we are comfortable with the capacity of replacing 477 with 500 megawatts. Number one is that it allows the time for the renewables to grow. And 2, it really gives us some ability to have some choices on what we might do at Intermountain Power Project down the road. Not only could we use some of this existing capacity, should we end up with all the capacity, of keeping all the capacity, we would have choices on how much we could build at Intermountain. We could build less potentially. And this particular site is unique in the sense that it already has a site footprint ability to put another 500 megawatts on this site. Now, we would have to negotiate the water rights, but the gas is there. We would have to maybe upgrade the transmission. But there is that potential.
But I think to answer the Commissioner's question is depending on how we structure the agreement, say there's take-or-pay contracts, or if they got, right now it's 100% us. If, let's say, another entity comes in and they want 10% of the, there's a price to pay on the way we structure is the capacity, if they're relying on that capacity for standby charges and the energy charges on top of it, and for them to share on the formula of the O&M costs that we have in there. Those are all things we will enter as we enter into the percentages.
Well, in the highly unlikely situation, which I guess has close to a 0 chance of occurring, that we decide we don't need any of it. How does it work?
If well, there's a marketing. I mean, we have a marketing arm of our system, that puts out on the market, the capacity of this unit, whether it's services that we provide on standby or actual energy. There are a lot of options in there, but we don't, in our IRP, because we run it for the next 30 years, we don't see an instance where this machine is not going to be needed for. The more we add renewables for us to balance our system, this is going to be very critical to have this unit to replace what we're getting out of and give us more flexibility, because this is a unit that could ramp up and down, where before with the coal we couldn't.
I think I can elaborate a little bit in a way that will be supportive and helpful. They mentioned a capacity factor expectation of 20%, which on 500 megawatts means an expectation of about 100 megawatts. And so what you're asking, if I were to reform your question with your permission, is what do we do with the sunk costs on the other 400 megawatts? And that is simply one of the thorny questions that attends renewables, because one cannot really dispose of the sunk costs that are needed to fill in should there not be wind or sun. So you're going to have capacity you've paid for, whether you really need it or not, from a expected loading level of the plant, which is one of the reasons they're trying to clarify that it's not going to be base loaded. It will be far below that level as they currently plan it and model it.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments on this one? Oh, Dr. Pickle, please.
I had a few brief cautions in this process with regard to due diligence, but a couple sentences of history are important. A lot of these facilities were built immediately following the energy crisis of 2000-2001, and this is one of those facilities. In the interim, we've had slower electric growth than anticipated, and we've had growth in renewables, and we've had the effects of the recession. So these plants that were designed to run more than 50% of the time are running less than 20% of the time, which means they're starting and stopping a lot more. It's like running your Mercedes as a taxi. it's tough on the car. And so you get wear patterns, and they don't operate perfectly in this mode. DWP has appropriately included amounts to allow for some design changes, I assume to address things like better operations at low capacity factor. But there has been a catastrophic outage at this plant. It's been addressed. It was in the steam turbine, not the gas turbine. In any purchase of these, one question I haven't nailed down is, when was the last major overhaul on this, and when is the next major overhaul?
All right.
Hamid is here, so I'll have Hamid answer that. But for the record, this is not a Mercedes. It's a GMC truck.
Hamid Najat, Assistant Director of Fuel and Power Purchase. The last major overhaul was done on the spring of 2012, and the next one is not planned for about 5 years, depending on how we use it. There's going to be minor overhauls, but a major is not due about 5 years from now.
And I asked that question because in a major overhaul, a significant portion of the cost of a gas turbine is replaced in that process. So it's a major capital cost. And it's good that's been done recently. Not all components, as far as we understand, of this deal are done. The assignment is not complete on the GE long-term service agreement, which is the important maintenance agreement for this. And the Water District Energy Service Agreement, as I understand, isn't complete yet. So there are other contractual agreements that are needed to make this go forward.
And just a comment on that is that there's probably over a dozen what we consider conditions precedent. These agreements would be a couple of examples. The asset purchase is not effective until all the condition precedents are completed.
And the company that's running it right now on the Wood Group, we've had experience with them. They're very experienced, very skilled agency, that has done this before. So based on the profile of how we run the utility and how we run these units, we've been dealing with them on the maintenance practices moving forward so we can avoid any of those pitfalls.
My closing comments really mirror their conclusions, however. Assuming they address all these conditions precedent, this is an attractive time to buy a used plant. It's a reasonable price, and they've carefully studied that they're getting the best of the lot. But this is used equipment.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. None opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 20, transfer of funds from the Power Revenue Fund to the Reserve Fund of the City of Los Angeles during the fiscal year 201314.
Phil Liver, Chief Financial Officer. I'll be presenting this one briefly, and Ann Centilli will be available to answer any questions. This item requests this board's consent to transfer $253 million to the Reserve Fund of the City of Los Angeles. This represents 8% of the prior year's gross operating revenue. It was something we budgeted for last year, and we budget for every year. This amount is permissible per two tests that are specified in our bond covenants. One is that we have sufficient net income to make the transfer. That test has been met. And the second is that with the effect of this transfer, we won't be left with less than 1/3 equity on our balance sheet. And that test also has been met. Those tests are spelled out in the appendix to the letter. I want to just make one note that we today are posting our audited financial statements for the power system to our website, and there was one last-minute audit adjustment that resulted in the net income increasing from $381 million that's shown on attachment A to $383 million. But in both cases, the tests are still met, and would be all I would have to say. We did present this item as an informational item at the last meeting, and would request your authorization to make the transfer, which would be done in multiple parts. We'd make half of the transfer essentially within 30 days, and the remaining portion in monthly installments over the remainder of the fiscal year.
Questions, comments?
I have a
Commissioner
question,
Barad.
Phil. How do you determine what goes to the general fund and what goes to the reserve fund of the city?
Well, technically, it's all sent to the city's reserve fund. Now, how they apportion it from there, that's a question we'd have for the CAO. But it gets used for general city purposes.
So it does get used for general purposes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. I mean, none opposed. It's enacted. Thank you. Item 21, energy cost adjustment expenditures for the 12-month period commencing January 1st, 2014.
Jeff Peltola, Director of Rates and Financial Planning. I just have a couple of the charts that were actually in the board letter, and I just wanted to go through this. This is a similar presentation I think I gave to this board about 3 months ago. If you look at the structure of our rates, what we're talking about is really these top three buckets in this board resolution: the variable energy adjustment, the variable renewable portfolio standard energy adjustment, and the capped RPS energy adjustment. That, in conjunction with the energy cost adjustment in our capped rate, represents roughly 42% of our total revenue, and this is shown in page 2 of the board package. On the top, or on page 4, you can see our comparison of what our rates are doing, which is in the blue dashed line, and that's what we're actually approving, or you're actually approving in this proposal, is going from this to this. So it's actually going down in the projection. It's going down and will represent going from a 6.17 to 6.13. It'll represent roughly about a 21-cent decrease per month for the average residential customer. If we look forward, the other part is on just the renewable factors. So this gets to a lot of the discussions we've had today about the renewable portfolio standard. In comparison to our rate action that we took in 2012, you can see that now our renewable portion is below, and this is what we're actually approving today. We are below our projections that we had in 2012. A lot of the projects are coming in at a lower cost. Even our projection for the next quarter, which we are just proposed or have not proposed formally yet, but that's what our current projections are, will still be below that.
But what caused that steep drop?
This steep drop, so a lot of where this really came from is, one, we had very good energy sales this summer. So when we have good energy sales, that puts more in our balancing account for this. So that and the costs have actually fallen off on a lot of the projects that we're looking at going forward. A lot of the discussion you see of all these different renewable projects, Aaron can speak to it, the costs have got lower than what we projected in 2012 because the solar market has come down quite a bit. So when you compare those two charts, the first chart that had the total being higher, but then the renewable portion, which is 2 out of the 3 factors, is lower, the question becomes, well, what caused it to be a little bit higher? And this is really, and this is on page, the top of page 5 in your package, it's the natural gas. When you look at what we had in 2012, we are projecting natural gas to be just a little under $4. What our projections, and we're looking at the forward market now, it's actually a little under $4.70. So you have, that's the 18% difference, and that's what's really causing the overall to be just a little bit higher than the 2012 rate package. So in total, again, this is what is being proposed for approval today, is this reduction of the total from 6.176 cents to 6.134, represents about a 21 cent per month decrease.
Is there something seasonal about this? Is there normally this type of change between quarters, these quarters of the year, or is that just random?
It's always a 12-month look ahead is what we use for the projections. The only seasonal impact will be, especially for this quarter, is that if you have higher than projected sales in the past quarter, which we did in the summer, that will help us because it'll put a little bit more in the balancing account and lower that.
Questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve the estimated expenditures? So move. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much. Matter number 22, financial services, estimated water quality improvement, demand side management, water conservation, reclaimed water, and water security expenditures for April 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2015.
Phil Leiber, Chief Financial Officer. I'll cover this one.
Okay, and there is a speaker card, but why don't you make your... speaker card is removed.
Okay.
Oh, there was another speaker card. There a second speaker card?
Okay, the first speaker is Dr. Tom Williams?
Dr. Williams,
are you going to go first? He passed. Oh, okay.
He's passed.
Okay, then Brom Siegel? Oh, okay, that's it then.
Not sure how direct this would be of use, but I'm recovering water. When you reclaim water and have to process it, I've worked with some of the water recovery programs in many of the 100 projects that have been done, ones in El Paso and in Las Cruces, where there's methods of reducing the amount of energy needed to reuse water. Instead of using aeration techniques, there's methods that will cut the energy cost by 20 to 30%. Some of those proposals were used by projects of the Department of Defense, and there's methods that could be available. One of them is part of a system of processing the water, and it's method of putting current through the water to instead of chemical treatment, it's a non-chemical treatment, and you don't have to spend the energy to aerate the water with big pumps. It's a 5 million gallon per day system giving complete reuse recovery in Las Cruces. So if anyone wants to know about it, please reach me. I'm Bram Siegel, and I can put my number's on the card.
Thank you.
Okay. This item relates to approving expenditures that will be used in the calculation of water rates starting April 1st, 2014. It's a very similar item to the power one that we just talked about. This is 1 quarter further out, and the reason for that is for water rate changes, we have to send out a notification to our customers under Section 218. So we need a little more time to send out those notices. The expenditures that are covered in this rate adjustment are for water conservation, reclaimed water, water quality improvement, and water security. These costs are recovered through several pass-through rates that make up part of the water rate structure. Your approval of the proposed resolution will result in rates that increase the typical customer bill by about 14 cents per month for the typical 1,200 cubic feet per month residential customer. This board letter also describes changes in certain other automatic pass-through charges that operate without board approval. And those include the Owens Valley regulatory and low-income subsidy adjustments. Those are both decreasing for the quarter, mostly due to a decrease in water security expenditures. However, offsetting this is an increase in the purchased water component that would increase from about $1.81 to $1.86 per 100 cubic feet. And that is a result of the substantial increase in purchased water costs due to reduced snowpack for 2 consecutive winters in a row. Overall, these automatic and the board-approved pass-throughs from one quarter to the next are going to result in a rate increase of about 48 cents per month for the typical customer, and that would result in bills going from $56.22 up to $56.70 per month, and that's shown on the chart on page 2. So with this, we would recommend that you adopt this resolution authorizing these expenditures for the 12-month period commencing April 1st, 2014.
Comments, questions? Commissioner Barat.
So what we're doing is voting a rate increase for water.
Technically, you're adopting the expenditures for these programs that will have the effect of increasing the rates through these quarterly adjustment mechanisms.
Okay, and then you said the typical household would be 48 cents a month?
That would be the increase as a result of all the pass-throughs. That includes the ones that the board explicitly votes on, as well as the automatic pass-through. It's that automatic pass-through for purchased water that's causing most of that increase of the 48 cents. The ones you're voting on today would increase, would represent 14 cents of that 48 cents.
48 cents to the bill, to the total of the bill?
48 cents per month, bottom line impact on the bill.
And just as clarification, of which 14 cents
Yes.
is what you're actually voting on here today.
Exactly, I've got that. Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? Is there a motion to approve? So move. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's passed. Thank you.
The city council, excuse me, I'm sorry. The city council does not have to vote on that?
The city council only votes for changes to the rate ordinance. So the base rate, water rates, are specified in the ordinance. So if we want to change those, that requires council action.
That goes to city council.
If we would want to change the structure of these pass-throughs, that would require going to council. But if it's just a matter of changing the amounts that flow through those pass-throughs, that's a subject of this board's authority.
Okay, we have already dealt with the next three items on the agenda, 23, 24, and the special agenda item. So we move to filed items. First, item 25, A, B, and C, informational items. 25A, Water System Monthly Report.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Then are we going to go through 27, A, B, and C as well?
Yes, we are.
And then we go to closed session?
Yes.
And then that's it, we're not coming back?
Assuming we get through 25, 26, and 27, then when we go to closed session, we don't come back.
Okay, as I was hoping we were going to take a break and then get to these things.
Well, we could. It's up to the board. I was sort of hoping we'd get through them, but I'm willing to do whatever the rest of the board would like to do.
Well, just with respect to timing, 2025 is only, there's no presentation anticipated. Those were they're filed items. If there are questions of commissioners, we have people here to respond to them, but there's not a presentation plan with regard to those, just to give you a feel for timing.
Okay.
Why don't we go as far as we can, and if someone wants to stop, we can stop and do the closed section and then come back. But I think we're doing pretty well.
Yes, you are.
Okay, 25A, Water System Monthly Report.
And these, you can just file them and just ask questions only if you have questions on them.
Okay, are there questions on 25A? It will be filed. 25B, Power System Monthly Report. Questions? It will be filed. 25C, Financial Services Organization. Report August of 2013. Questions? It will be filed. Okay, informational, I couldn't resist. Reports and presentations for items in future meetings. 26, Power Reliability Program upcoming procurement contracts. A, Spec 531 for services for installing, removing, and splicing underground distribution system cables.
We'll take, Commissioners, this is a fairly large contract that's going to be coming to this board, so we thought we take a few minutes and go over the power reliability. We've talked several times about it. We've given Commissioner Noonan a separate meeting to go over these numbers, these details, but I have Darrell Buckley here. It will take a few minutes and go over the program itself and then prepare us for the next meeting, which is going to be over $100 million worth of contracts that's going to come to this board to kind of weave into the strategy that we have on the reliability.
Now, is this on all three of these items?
All three items, yes.
Okay.
And there is no action today?
No action. It's just the background information and any questions you have so we can prepare for next time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good morning. Darrell Buckley, Director with Power System Transmission Distribution. And basically what we're going to do is just go over a brief overview of the power system reliability program and focus mostly on the distribution where these contracts are going to come into play. So if you look at the reliability plan as a whole, it really encompasses the generation, transmission, substation, and distribution aspects of getting power from the source to the customer. So the first generation plant there you see really talks about a lot what we talked about today of all the renewable energy that we're bringing in, and along with the internal and external facilities that we have that bring the power into Los Angeles, or generate the power into Los Angeles. You actually approved the repair for Unit 9 at Haynes, which is really part of the reliability plan of generation. Transmission is the lines that take the power from the generation plants to our substations. And that consists of about 3,700 circuit miles of transmission line. 124 miles of that in basin is underground. Almost all of it is overhead transmission across the 4 states of Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and California. Then we talk about, and it brings it into the substations, and you can see the picture of the substation. There's some large units that when we got to replace units in these facilities, it's a lot of work, and you probably saw that with the Haynes Unit 9 at was displayed earlier. And we have about 158 distributing stations and 23 receiving stations that are part of those assets right there. All of those three really have some built-in redundancies built into them. So when you break this chain, if you break the chain in some of those areas there, we have some resiliency to keep the lights on to the customers. The last box is distribution, and that's what I want to kind of focus on today. And that's really what the customer sees in the outages. We have 321,000 wood poles in our system, 126,000 transformers, 11,000 miles of distribution, and 43,000 substructures. It's quite a bit of assets out there that we got to take care of, and we've got a pretty good reliability plan to do that. Oops. So what you see here and the distribution power system reliability plan, we really look at these 6 categories here, and it's all part of our rate structure that's factored in there. We have what we call our fix-it tickets, and that's all of the backlog maintenance items. What we call maintenance, most of it is capital projects, but maintenance items that we have. We have our pole replacement program, our cable replacement program, transformer replacement program, cross-former replacement program, vault replacement. That pretty much is the distribution power reliability plan and all the assets that we have to maintain and upgrade periodically. So first I'll talk a little bit about our fix-it tickets. Currently we have a backlog of about 45,000 jobs in the queue that we need to do repairs on. I kind of looked at it a little bit as Dr. Williams had mentioned earlier. That's our unfunded liability that's sitting out there. That's what we've got to take care of. I've got, it's broken down to what calls into different categories. We have our design work, which is the work that has been designed that's really focused on maintaining our infrastructure. We have what's called a PMAC, or a preventive maintenance item. Those items are pretty much focused on preventative type maintenance projects, but it was also inspected by our inspectors, and they've come up with those backlog of work. Then you have a system maintenance accelerated job. We have about 16,000 of those. That's the projects that really come from our district. As our district crews are out in the field and they find work that needs to be done, they'll come back and notify their superintendents of this, and those are created in what's called a system maintenance job that we've got to get back to. A TMAC, we've got about 9,000 of those in there. Those are trouble maintenance projects. That's all of our trouble crews that are working 24 hours a day, going out there responding to lights out. Those are all the jobs that are created when they go out in the field and do the repair. Most of those are stuff that they had to get the lights on, but they're just temporary repairs out there so that we can get the power back to our customers. And then the last item in there is what we call our IMAX, or Inspection Maintenance Accelerated Code. All of those things that end in IC are non-design projects, so there's been no design work done in those. So when our crews get those, they go out in the field and they'll actually do what's called an as-built. They'll bring they'll go out, take care of the project, and then they as-built it as they're out there. And the IMAX are jobs that have been identified that need to be repaired by our inspectors. So we have a pretty inclusive inspection program that we have in place that goes out and identifies the conditions of all of our assets that are out there. That's a relatively new program. It's only been in effect for a couple years now, so those numbers are low, and those numbers you're going to see as time goes on, the IMAC numbers we're going to increase quite a bit. So the next item that we have is, I want to talk about a little bit, is just our deteriorated pole program. So what I show here is a average age of our poles. Now in Los Angeles, with the soil conditions that we have here, we pretty much figure that we can get 80 years out of a life of a wood pole. And there's a number of factors that contribute to that with the soil conditions, and it could be as simple as somebody watering their lawn every day and there's a pole that's buried into the grass, and that will saturate the pole, and that speeds up the decay process. So there's a number of things that contributed to that, but in general, we can figure about 80 years out of a life of a pole. So with 80 years, we want the average age of our poles to be somewhere around 40 years. Currently, we're at 48, almost going on 49 years is our average age of all of our poles in our system. And what you see here is, it's graphed out, is if you replace 2,000 poles a year, you can see that what's happening with the average age of our pole. And we will not, if our average age of our poles get much older, we're not going to be able to sustain a reliable power for our customers. Currently budgeted, and with the contracts I'm going to talk a little bit about, that yellow line that you see there, that's 4,000 poles a year. Those are the poles that we're going to try to proactively go out and replace to help our infrastructure improve over the time. This next picture talks about, this has a couple poles of what you might see out in the field. This is a typical example of a couple of wood poles that are out there. We talk about we're going to be replacing 5,000 poles a year, but in reality, 1,000 of those poles are just done through normal routine business, and they're not actually necessary poles that need to be replaced. So our real focus with the contracts that we got in place is to get about proactively 4,000. The next slide here, we have a cable replacement program. We got about 3,500, 3,600 miles, circuit miles of cable that we need to replace. We're going to try to get between 40 to 60 miles of cable replaced on an annual basis. That pretty much leads us into about a 70-year life on our cable. What's interesting is that we have a lot of lead cable in our distribution system. We can't purchase lead cable anymore. for environmental reasons. It was actually a pretty robust system, but and the life of lead cable actually was better than what we're having to do now with our synthetic cables. But we're hoping that we'll get about 40 to 60, 70 years on our cable down the road. Transformer replacement, we have 126,000 distribution transformers out there. I've kind of got a picture here of 3 different scenarios. We've got the overhead pole-mounted substructure and a pad mount transformer that make up that mix. And we got a program in place. We're going to put together replace about 2,400 transformers a year to keep that. The average life of a transformer is about 60 years. But again, there's a number of factors that contribute to that, depending on the loading that we have out there and how long it's sustained the loading and some other factors that tie into it. The next process is our vault replacement. We've got about 54,000 substructures out there. Some of those are department owned, some of those are privately owned that our conductors are traveling through. Our plan right now is to reconstruct about 12 vaults a year. They have about a 25-year lifespan, but we've gotten a lot more out of them. What you see here is a typical picture that on the left is just some conductors is what it looks like inside of a vault. It's kind of a simple thing, but on the left side is actually one of the vault replacement projects that we got going on. And what they have to do is you got to actually go in there, you got to suspend all of these cables and equipment that's in a vault, and you got to take the vault apart, and then you got to rebuild it, and systematically keeping all of these conductors energized while we're doing that. So it's quite an extensive process to get this done. And then the next slide here that I have is our cross-arm replacement project. We got about 1.3 million wood cross-arms out in our system, and we really need to be replacing about 18,000 a year annually in order to keep our system integrity in place. As you look on these slides, that picture on the left that you see with all those broken cross-arms, that's what we call, it's probably a T-Mac that's sitting in there that is actually working. Our crew has gone out there and done some temporary repairs, put some rope on it to hold it up, and it's still working, but that needs to be rebuilt, and that's part of that 45,000 jobs that I've got sitting in the queue that we've got to get to. The picture on the right is just another example of a broken crossarm that is out there, and it's probably still working. It's just until somebody calls us and we see it out there, or we've notified it, found it on our inspection process, it could theoretically be working. It would probably fall apart in the rain, though, and cause an outage. So we have a tremendous amount of work, as you see, that needs to get done. And with my in-house crews, we cannot do this kind of work. We're going to need help. So in collaboration with labor, and in order to really have a system that's reliable for our customers, we need some help. And so with that, we're going to be coming to you hopefully in our next board meeting with 3 large contracts to help us do this work. The first one is going to be specification or contract 531. That's going to be primarily to focus on underground for cable replacement. And that's going to, we've had these contracts in place in the past, and we need to re-up them again. That's to help us get to that, 60 miles a year, 50 miles a year that we need to do. And then we've got contracts 532 and 540. These are contracts for installing and removing and maintaining our overhead facilities. They're going to be helping us do all of our pole replacement programs, some of our cross-arm replacement programs, and to help us get caught up on these fix-it tickets. The fix-it tickets, we did put together a 10-year plan on that, so we're hoping to get through all of those and probably get about 5,000 done a year. Currently, we're growing at about 1,000 a year. And when we put this all together a couple of years back, it's proven its point. We've grown about 1,000 a year for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, we haven't had the funding in the past few years, but we do currently right now, and with the help of the rate case, we should be able to combat that. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Obviously, there's a massive amount of work to be done. You certainly made that clear. I can anticipate there'll be questions when we're talking about contracts cumulatively of the massive size that we're talking about. It would be helpful to the board to understand perhaps a little bit more about the contracting process, how these decisions are made, how you go about deciding who will be the beneficiaries of these extremely large contracts. I, for one, don't understand the process. I'm not sure if the other members do. But that'll be a question that will leap to my mind when we're talking about the dollars that we'll be talking about. I think you've made a completely irrefutable case that there's a massive need. But how the money is spent is going to be a matter of some interest.
Just a comment on the prioritization. We didn't go into detail, just to assure you that the prioritization of these, when Darrell talks about 45,000 tickets, those, we have the machinery in place to prioritize and spend the money in the order of the benefits that the system would get. So every component that he put out there is that we have that filtering process that's going to be, and then we can touch on that also.
When are you planning on bringing these items before the board?
We're hoping next board meeting it'll be in place, and then we'll answer some of your concerns.
One thing I'm not clear about, in light of the fact that we're doing such a good job on going through this agenda today, I shouldn't say such things before the meeting ends, but are we still planning on a meeting in 2 weeks, or
we are?
We still are.
We have
Okay.
items that we need to be done before year end.
Just curious. Will that agenda be as packed as today's?
Not quite, no.
Only a 5-inch.
And Aaron, do you expect these items to be before us at that meeting?
That's our goal.
I would urge you to give us some greater clarity on how the contracts are let at that meeting.
Maybe we'll put a written report in your packet, or we could do a briefing.
And get them before us well in advance of the meeting. Other comments or questions on items 26ABC?
Maybe I missed something, Mr. President, but what's the dollar size that we're talking about here? Is this like...
Aram, what's the dollar size of what we're talking about?
Well, they're about, the two overhead contracts are going to be about $82 million each, and the underground contract's about $47 million.
That's a mere $200 million.
It's a large, and it's a massive mobilization on our part to make sure the system is running while we get these contractors integrated into our system.
And that'll be over a 3-year period.
But when you see a number of that size, for those of us who aren't used to numbers of that size, there will be questions about how that process works. Yes.
We are really encouraged that this is moving in a good direction. One of the items that you might want to ask be distributed to you is the work that's been in progress over the last several months with a somewhat moving end date for finalizing a report from an outside consultant that was intended to help them reshape this program before the rate case began, to effects that still aren't clear, but when the report is finalized, I'm sure you'd like to see it because it will be having an ongoing effect on the rates.
Well, it sounds like you know something about this report. When do you expect it to be final?
I know that it was supposed to be done, and it's taken more time than everyone thought it would to be final, and I will be happy to get it when you get it, but I'm not going to get it any sooner than you do.
But does this report bear upon the contracting processes that will have led to the results that we'll be asked to approve at the next meeting?
Somewhat indirectly, because they are reshaping the PRP program to be the PRSP program, and that is going to go into the rate request that's coming forward next year. So it will all fit together, I'm sure, once we see the new program and the details of the new programs.
Just as a point of clarification, that this doesn't change our contracting process. This is just a matter of continued effort that the power system has been doing here for a number of years to continually try to refine how do we prioritize these expenditures. They are large expenditures. We have underfunded these in the past. It's been one of these programs where when we've had to defer rates in prior years and prior boards and prior general managers, one of the areas that has suffered because there's not a regulatory mandate for these levels of expenditures has been the power reliability program. So one of the things that Aaron's been working on, we've been trying to structure more rigor to that program, consistently looking at how can we get more targeted at that effort, and they are doing that. That effort really doesn't impact how we contract for this. It impacts what we do and the sequence in which we do them. Right.
And also get into the habit of including this as a scorecard in our IRP. Our integrated resource plan would declare on an annual basis how are we doing on the replacement of the infrastructure, how are we taking care of, and the comprehensiveness of this plan, rather than only covering the distribution side. Power reliability, as Darryl mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, it includes everything in the power system, from generation to transmission to all the way to the consumer, where they have the wire coming into their resident or their. So it is a comprehensive program that we're putting together.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 management reports, item 27.
I do have one speaker card for 26.
Okay, before going into closed session, on 27A, we have 1 speaker card.
No, on 26, we have 1 speaker card.
Oh,
one
I'm
we were
sorry.
just talking about.
Wait a second. On 26? I wasn't, I didn't see. We have a speaker card on 26, before we conclude 26, which we just did.
The speaker is Bram Siegel.
Yes, I've spent about 20 years on the topic of the reduction of losses in distribution systems, some of it with Oak Ridge National Lab. The rate of 2,400 transformers per year could be improved and reduced by transformers which are exposed to nonlinear loads and industrial sites where they have a lot of variable speed drives or arc furnaces or induction furnaces, which cause extra loss of the, let's say, reduction of the insulation on transformers. And you have to change the oil more often, and the insulation breaks down. Transformers operate at higher temperatures. So even though you may have a preventative maintenance program to check the oil, there's ways that could be used to reduce your, to improve your life expectancy on transformers. If they're selected to, to be where the users are industrial, certain types of industrial users, that's what would be the way to do it. Since transformers are a major cost compared to your other items you're replacing. So this is too much technical to go over here, but it's dealing with power quality issues. And I know right now that they're not being covered by any of the utilities at this point. So my website, Active Harmonic Filters, covers some of it, but there's a lot more in depth. It's a field, it's an in-depth field. So I hope that someone from your organization gets a hold of me. I could certainly help to reduce your cost there.
Thank you. 27A, we have 1 speaker card.
Yes, for 27A, I have a speaker card, but I also have a card that just said 27. Sumi Parekh. Do you know which item? 27A also. Okay, we have 2 speakers for 27A. Okay, the first speaker is Dr. Tom Williams.
Go ahead, Dr. Williams. Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, also affiliated with the Sierra Club Energy Committee. Feed-in tariffs. If we're going to have on-house roof solar panels, can we get a feed-in tariff? I personally, my house runs maybe 5 kilowatt hours per day. If I put a solar panel on, I have excess. So what? So we reduce it down. Well, I could get air conditioning. I could get a plug-in car and such like that. in order to make use of my roof. However, in Europe, they haul them out during the summertime and they get peak rates for power. One of the elements would be in the feed-in tariffs. Have peak rates, baseload rates, off-peak rates. If you're going to put a smart meter in, there's several ways of doing it. But the primary thing is give at least an allotment or a percentage to residential units of solar panels with feed-in rates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second speaker is Sumi Parekh.
Good afternoon. My name is Sumi Parekh, and on behalf of the Clean LA Solar Coalition, I would like to express our support for the 100 megawatt feed-in tariff program. The DWP implemented the FIT program to stimulate a local market in rooftop solar that creates jobs and spurs economic development. This program has also contributed to DWP's compliance with state mandate and has had continued support from the mayor, the DWP board, and the city council. So far, the DWP has received 256 applications for both large and small project categories and is proud to have one of the lowest tariffs in the country for urban solar rooftops, with prices ranging from 15 cents here to an upwards of 30 cents in Rhode Island and 39 cents in Oregon for projects under 10 megawatts. With the first two tranches underway, the LABC Institute commissions a study with the UCLA Luskin Center that evaluated the design and implementation of the program thus far. The evaluation is based on feedback gathered through extensive interviews with program administrators, stakeholders, and applicants that represent over 60% of the allocated capacity. The report has not publicly been released yet, but I'd like to share some of the key findings with you today. I would first like to commend the FIT team, General Manager Ron Nichols, and Onwood and her team for their hard work on the implementation and continuation of this program. The interviews with applicants reveal that they were especially appreciative of DWP's supportive posture during the application phase, as well as during the site visit and interconnection study phase. Exemplary staff's effort was critical in accelerating these early stages of the application projects. Many applicants did notice, however, a slowdown in the application project after the completion of the site visit and before the execution of the contract and interconnection agreement. This was due to a combination of overly complex contracts, contract inexperience on the part of the applicants, and a shortage of LADWP technical staff. Nonetheless, approved applicants currently appear to be on track to bring local renewable energy online in LA. The initial two allocations will generate 862 job years, which will be part of a total of 2,000 job years once the entire feed-in tariff program is implemented. The program is also expected to generate approximately $300 million of direct investment for the City of LA over the lifetime of the program. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I should add that I have a letter that I received this morning from the Clean LA Solar, I guess the part of the Clean LA Solar, part of the LA Business Council, signed by Mary Leslie, President of the LA Business Council, strongly supporting the feed-in tariff program. I'd like to submit this letter for the record and have it included in the minutes. I'll give it to you when the meeting is over, Barbara. So we move to item 27A, which is the feed-in tariff management report.
Yes, good afternoon. Finally, we're close to the home stretch. My name is Onwood, and I manage the Solar Development Group. So I'm here today to give you the background on our feed-in tariff program and also the update. So the feed-in tariff program, we created it because we realized we needed to augment the existing solar incentive program that we have. The solar incentive program has been in place since 1999. With the solar incentive program, customers are able to install solar on their property and consume that energy and reduce their bill. What we were noticing are sites such as large warehouses, apartment buildings, and carports. They have extra space for development of additional solar, but they couldn't consume it. So this is where the feed-in tariff program comes in. They can build another solar system and sell all of that energy to LADWP on a standard contract for up to 20 years. So with this, it stimulates the economic development and create local jobs in the city, and that's why there's been such tremendous support for the program. Not only that, there's a Senate bill, SB 1332, that requires LADWP to offer at least a 75 megawatt program by July 2013. And us as an engineer, we like these local solar projects because the generators are right where the consumption is. This reduces transmission losses from traditional plants coming from far away. Now, not only is this good for our grid, it creates geographic diversity and technology diversity. A lot of our renewables right now is wind. Now we were bringing in more solar into our system, and these solar units are spread out throughout the city. So when there's cloud coverage, our whole solar system doesn't go down. So this is the history of the program. In April 2012, with tremendous support from City Council, they authorized the manager, Mr. Nichols here, to enter into contracts, these long-term contracts, without having to go to them for each contract. And so with that, in 2012, we wanted to have a 150 megawatt program, but we wanted to test it out first to fine-tune the processes that we've set up. We've had an extensive outreach effort over 2 years to see what's the best program for the city of LA. So in April, we had a successful program as far as the excitement for it. We received about 7 megawatts, and with several months of fine-tuning the process, we deployed a 150 megawatt program. Now, what we had decided to do, and the prior board supported it, was we wanted to install all of the 150 megawatts by the end of 2016 to be able to capture the investment tax credit that was supposed to sunset in December 2016. So in our extensive outreach, there were 2 different sets of developers. There was a set that preferred a set pricing program, so they have certainty. And then there was another group that wanted certainty with the amounts of projects that they can have, and they were welcoming the competitive piece. So in January, we first received approval for the 100 megawatt portion, which is the set portion. And we started out with the first allocation. We wanted the program to be scaled out so to minimize the boom and bust cycles of traditional fits that we've seen in the past. So we've rolled out the first 20 megawatts at 17 cents. And shortly thereafter, we came up with another program, which is the Fit 50, to make it an overall comprehensive 150. That portion is competitively priced, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. And so far, we've in July 2013, we launched the second set of 20 megawatts at 16 cents. So for the Fit 50, what we realized were the larger developers had a lot of buying power. So with the economies of scale and with the financing power that they had, we realized we can bring the cost down and save rates for our customers in procuring renewables. And with that program, we are reviewing the bids right now. And what I'd like to point out is most of these projects, they were broken up to 4 different possible segments. In total, 50 megawatts of in-basin projects will be combined with 200 megawatts out at our Beacon site. And we wanted these in-basin projects to have the same type of milestone as the in-basin portion of the FIT 100. So we wanted a third of their projects to be built by December of 2014, the second third the end of 2015, and the last at 2016. If they don't meet these milestones, they will lose a hefty deposit. So for the FIT 100 program, I'd like to show you how it is paced out. Right now, we are at this point. We've already deployed the first 20 megawatts at 17 cents. We've deployed the second 20 megawatts at 16 cents. And now the program is set to deploy the second 20 megawatts at 15 cents in January of 2014. These projects here are first come, first served style. The industry wanted to have certainty, so when they go and procure these sites, they know exactly what kind of rate of return they're able to expect. So for the first two allocations that we received, we had a variety of different types of projects and different sizes. And the way we designed the program, there are really four main sections. You go through an application review process, an interconnection study, a contract execution, and then the customer gets 18 months to build these projects. Typically, they can probably build it within a year. So this is the status of where we are with the two allocations plus a demonstration that we have. I have to admit, even though we received great reviews from the participants, our application review, our interconnection study has been good, but the contract execution has been a little harder than anticipated. We designed a standard contract. However, some of the developers were having problems with filling it out. So we've been in contact with them. We're coming up with better ways on giving them samples for future projects to speed up this process. So now, when it comes to pricing, our FIT 100 project averages 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So right now, what I can tell you is the IOUs such as Edison, PG&E, and San Diego Gas and Electric, they have a program what's called REMAT, and they are starting their pricing at a little under 9 cents per kilowatt hour. But what I'd like to point out is most of these projects that they are procuring right now, they tend to be on average about 2 megawatts. The projects that we get here in the urban LA area is about 300 kilowatts. So there is a price difference on what it takes to build on rooftops in the city of LA. So we also know that, the large-scale projects that we've procured in 2012 was at about 9 cents. So we recognize ground-mounted systems are much cheaper than what a smaller rooftop installation would cost. Now, the FIT 50 portion of our program, we are reviewing the bids right now, but on average, we are seeing about 12.5 cents. So we have to keep in mind these are the same types of projects, but these developers, they have economies of scale because they have lots of megawatts in hand to go and develop. So they're able to shave a lot of their soft costs. So what I'd like to do is, with all of the feedback that we've been getting from our customers and the stakeholders and the applicants, we are going to make changes and refinements to our processes, and we would like to come back to you in January to show you the revisions that we would like to make for the program. and we'd like to launch the third 20-megawatt allocation in February 2014. And for the FIT 150, we expect to execute those contracts probably around March of 2014. So I would be glad to. I went through it really quick, but I know we're all hungry, so please ask me whatever questions you want.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, congratulations on doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
Do you have the budget and the staff you need in order to do this job?
Yes, I have the budget and the staff. Let me go back to this one slide. So these are the main steps that we go through. So right now we've gone through this. The staff that I had asked for was 30 additional bodies, but a lot of it has to do with construction. So we are heading into the construction phase, and we are ramping up as far as getting them set to do the actual interconnection work. And for the staffing on the application and review and interconnection studies, we have hired new engineers, and they've been in training for the past year, and I'm set to get some this January.
And is that sufficient?
Yes.
My understanding is that the FIT project applicants are posted on the DWP website along with the status of the project towards completion. Do you provide the interconnection status of each project, and is it kept up to date online?
I have to say that we're slightly guilty of not updating it as often as we should. However, the people who are in the program, we have a hotline, so anytime they need to know where their status is, they can have that information, but it's for a lot of the others who are on the queue that are really curious to see if projects that are, shortlisted are going to fall off or not.
I learned from the Clean LA Coalition that they and UCLA were doing some evaluation. Has that been done?
Yes, they've evaluated, and Mary Leslie just told me they received signatures and approval from everyone yesterday, and she will be sending that to us shortly. However, even though we haven't seen the final report, we have had meetings with the coalition and UCLA to give us that feedback, and that's why right now we are working on the revisions that we need to do and things that we need to be proactive on to better communicate with the participants. And those things we will come back in January to make the improvements.
And share with us
Yes.
what you've done with regard to the suggestions
Yes.
of that combined.
Right. That's what we will do in January.
Good. Are there other questions or comments, Commissioner Barad?
As your department, do you work with the customer service and you said there's a hotline, do you work with them, or are you just involved with setting up the contracts and the purchasing?
Right. The hotline, actually, I even get the hotline. Everyone has a hotline number on the second line. So the hotline for the feed-in tariff program gets answered right away within the day.
What about the hotline for people who have purchased the rooftop solar programs, the residential?
Right.
Are you involved in that hotline if people want to speak?
Yes, I also am involved with the Solar Incentive Program hotline. That hotline lately has been overwhelmed, and typical backlog is supposed to be 1 day, and I have to admit that is right around now 5 days. So it's very frustrating for customers who want to have answers, and a lot of it has to do with the billing issues that we are seeing, and customers are curious on what to do with their bill.
All right, well, Mr. President, this was the item that I wanted to speak about, and I thought it would be under 27B, the customer information system, but it pertains to those people who have purchased solar. So I don't know if you want to do it now or...
Sure.
All right. I received a call from someone about 2 weeks ago who had spent a lot of money, $5,000, and put many panels on their roof in the West Valley in West Hills. They were questioning their bill because their first bill came and it was higher than they ever had gotten a bill before, and now they had the solar panels. The first time the husband called, he was on hold for an hour and a half. And then the next day, his wife called, and she was on hold for 40 minutes. And then finally, there was a voice message that said, if you want the solar department, and then, so in other words, they were calling the wrong department. They were calling DWP customer service. They did not know that there was a DWP hotline, a solar hotline. When they got the person on finally got somebody, it's for the solar, the voice message came on and said, leave your message and we'll call you back in 3 to 4 days. 7 days later, they received a call. At that point, the person said, we only have 3 people staffing this department, and we have hundreds of messages waiting. And I've already taken 12 minutes to tell you this. But what he did say was, don't pay the electric bill, because the bill was using the old meter, not the new meter. Now, the person who called me said, how are we supposed to know that? And that there was a different number on the bill, a different code for that meter. Now, most people don't know how to read that and wouldn't know what meter number is what. But anyway, so they were told not to pay the electric bill because it was wrong, but pay the other parts of the bill. But what they want to know, and I think this is a legitimate question, is that what is the solar panels, what are they producing as related to the power? Because there's no way for them, looking at this bill, to track the solar production. They're given a bill, it's a statement, it shows how much they owe, but it doesn't show how much production of solar power. And this is what the consumer wants to know. So I think that there's a problem here, where the department, we're promoting Go Solar. And then when the customer gets the bill, they're completely confused, and they don't know, once they read it, if it's a mistake or not. Now she says, when I get a bill, how do I ever know whether it's right or not? Because it doesn't show me what I've produced. And wondering, was it worth it? So I think we've got another public relations problem here with the solar people who bought these solar panels. Mm-hmm. And so we're back to customer relations, and I think this is late in the day, but this is very important. And to me, this is a priority. That this is, our customer service is the face of this department. And I think this is a problem when you're promoting solar and you have 3 people answering the phones, and people have to wait 7 days, and they don't know how to read the bill, they don't know what they produce. So I think I'd like to know what you think that your department could do to remedy this.
Okay, just want to make a clarification. The 3 people that man the solar hotline, they're there to answer questions about solar, like where's my application or things like that. But the first number is meant for billing issues, right? And there's a different hotlines, and so
Well, how does the consumer
Right.
know what number to call? I mean, here they've wasted, 2 days on the phone holding on, and they were calling the wrong number. How does someone who already has this know what number to call if they have a problem or a question?
Right. So the main number is 1-800-DIAL-DWP, and the people who are answering those phones, they should be able to direct the calls accordingly. And when it is a solar issue, then they channel it to the solar hotline. And if it's billing issue, there's a billing department that answers those.
Can you put that number, the solar hotline, on the bill that they get, so that if they do have a question, when they look at this bill and they see that it's not right, that they, right there and then, they know what number to call?
Okay, I'll have to defer that question to Sharon.
These are all very relevant and appropriate questions. We had part of the, and goes into the next item, which I won't go into your time, but we had a billing system that could not handle solar billing. And just start with that. And so what happened is that I'm going to answer both parts of your question, which is the billing part and the phone part. Let me just do the billing first. The old system could not handle any sort of net metering, negative consumption billing, which was one of the burning platforms of why we had to put in a new system. So prior to putting in the new system, the bills were quite confusing to customers, and we in fact do have 3 people, and we've since trained 2 more to handle these types of calls, because what happened is we'd have to cobble together solar billing for customers coming out of 2 separate systems and cobble it together. It was not pretty. The bills coming out of the new system come out of one system and can be read more cleanly by a customer. But to start with the billing, so now what happened when we put the new system in, and as we work through the issues, we've got 6,000 residential solar customers on the new billing system. 300, and the beauty of this new system is we have banks, usage banks, on every bill now, so customers can clearly see the usage that they have sort of in the bank, and when they go into a higher use season, it can come out of that bank. Out of that 6,000, we have 300 customers with a meter exchange conversion problem, which is requiring us to go in manually for all 300 of those customers, and I'd be glad to look at that specific case because this might have been one of the 300. So that is the issue with the billing. The billing actually is cleaner on the other side of this because it shows the customer their bank. The phone call, though, is unfortunately, because of these issues we're having with the conversion in the new system and those, we are having a harder service level time to call customers back. Before conversion, those 3 folks were answering every customer within 24 hours, and that was our service level agreement. Right now we're struggling with that, but our goal always was a 24-hour. We felt that was an appropriate service level for our solar customers. To your very point, this is an important thing, and we want to make it a good experience for customers. So you're absolutely right. That's the appropriate service level.
What will you do now to remedy the situation?
Well, what we've done right now, and this goes into how we're adding many, many more resources to the call center in general. We've expanded the number of solar folks that can answer solar billing questions to 5, but we'll expand that even further because we just want to make sure, and again, I completely agree with you, these are win-wins for everyone, and we want to make this a good experience for our customers. We now have a billing system that can do it on that side, but we have to serve these customers appropriately.
Well, if you're going to you're promoting the program, right, and it's a good program, so the more customers you get, obviously the more calls you're going to get. And so I would think you would have to expand your staff.
Agreed.
Now, what about their point that they see the usage, but there's no way to track the solar production? What about that?
Well, that's why I'm not sure if this is one of those, because it's the bank's really nice now. The customers have this usage bank to look at on their bill. So I'm wondering if that particular customer is either needs to be walked through the bank, or if it's one of the customers that has this issue with this meter exchange, that we can then clean that up for them so they can really, really understand how much usage they have in the bank. So without looking at it closer.
You're saying usage, and I'm saying production. Is there a place on there that says what the production?
Yes. So a typical net metered customer, there's 2 meters. There's one that is the billing meter, that's the net meter, which Sharon's staff takes care of. And there's also another meter, which is called a performance meter. So they do have it. Maybe they're just not aware of it. And that performance meter measures all of the production that comes out of it.
Is that on the bill?
It's not on the bill.
That's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you
to put it on the bill.
Put it on the bill. Because otherwise, do you expect the customer to go outside and look at a meter? I wouldn't know how to read a meter. I mean, is that what you're asking them to do?
No, there's methods of, and depending on what kind of system they have. For example, I have solar. I can get it on my iPhone. And depending on the size of the customer, there are ways to log into our system and read that output if you're over a certain size. But I'm sure the particular person that you're talking about, they're probably a smaller residential system.
Well, she said if she calls Solar City, she gets the answer.
Yes.
But she doesn't see it on the bill.
Okay.
And I think, we're in a new time now.
Okay.
We're talking about new systems, right? And maybe your billing needs to accommodate what's happening now in real time.
So we will have to work on that.
I mean, to ask the customer to read a meter or to go on some other line, I think that's, make it easy for them.
Commissioner, maybe I can help a little bit on the why this hasn't happened immediately. Our prior bill from our 39-year-old system, if you were someone that was going into our solar, you had a pretty much unintelligible bill. It was put on something that was force-fed into a system that just couldn't accommodate it, and it was awful. I'm glad to admit we knew that. It was one of the main things that we were looking at. It was the best that our customer service people could do. It's the best that our IT people could do with this ancient system that we had. The new one does have far more flexibility to be able to program, to change, and to customize. We have some customization that we are looking to do in a number of areas. This is one of them. Energy efficiency is another one. Some of our other programs are other. Some of our water use areas are some other ones. Our overall kind of triage, if you will, is to get the overall billing system to work and take care of this estimated meter issue. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we are doing on that. We will make changes to our solar bill, getting production information on the bill in a way that works. We'll get there. I'm not going to say it's going to get done in the next week or so, but it is an item that we will get corrected on there.
I think it's important
as we move forward to make it more transparent.
And I think, Mr. Nichols, that your use of the word triage is well placed, because I think that in terms of customer service and in terms of billing, we're in a triage situation, and it's like 1 week it's one thing, 1 week it's another thing, and now we're dealing with the solar. And so I think this is an important thing that we take care of, because you want to promote this program and you want it to work. We want it to work. Thank you.
I agree.
Other comments, questions? I know that Dr. Pickle wants to talk about this item.
I had a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Fred
Commissioner
talks, really
Feinberg.
quick, if you don't mind, Fred. Is there a problem with just hiring 50 people and training them in a week, that like most companies would do if they were faced with a customer service problem like this? Or are there work rules or contracting problems that prevent us from doing that? I'm getting tired of it, having, and I'm sure you are too. This is no slight actually against DWP staff, because I think that when I hear about the DWP worker that went and hand delivered a check at like 2 in the morning, and I really feel for the people who are on the front line and taking the customer complaints, but no business would allow itself to. Most businesses would go under if they function this way, and I think that makes all of us look bad.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know if the work rules need if the work rules need to be modified, or I don't know what it is, but it would certainly be helpful to. We had earlier labor and management cooperating on this settlement, whatever, that we all talked about. It would be nice for some cooperation here because it makes everybody look bad. So is it the work rules that are getting in the way to prevent you from hiring?
We have gone out and petitioned for 40 temporary customer service representatives, and we were able to get the paperwork through, and that's been done. And so we are bringing on, early January, we were able to bring on 40 new customer service representatives. But there's billing training and there's system training. So we do think even if we're able to expedite the training, it could take us an additional month to get those folks trained. Our initial thought was we were going to move some of the trained folks back from our service centers, which is a simpler, more remittance-oriented process, and put them on the phones and put the newer folks out in the remittance center. So we've got some strategies around doing that. In the meantime, and I can go through it more, but we're working, we're offering additional hours for our employees and doing everything we can to get a better service level in the call centers.
I know you have a very significant, I know you from the introduction, the briefing we had, and you have a corporate background, so
right.
It must be incredibly frustrating on your part, also having come from corporate, to see this. Everybody seems to have some type of background there. And I asked the Ratepayer Advocates Council about other systems, whether they had done this before and encountered it, and I guess there are some problems with outsourcing. It doesn't always work, just to try to benchmark our performance here against something other than being last. I just don't like being last.
And we are last,
right.
yeah.
So
right.
Keep it up and do what you can to try.
Can you hire retirees? Is that
We're actually
an idea?
Yeah, we are in the process of doing that as well. There are some limitations on doing that, but there are opportunities there.
Right.
This isn't just a work rules issue. There's also civil service rules that apply to just the process that you need to go through for bringing people on board. It's much faster than trying to bring on permanent staff, obviously, but there are still times and efforts that it takes that would be longer than you would typically anticipate if it was in a private corporate world. Just a fact. We are working on it. We're moving forward on it, and then there are training issues as well that we work on. But we are on top of it. Customer services, principally, what we're talking about here largely is a customer service related customer service response representative response issue that we're working on, which actually Sharon's going to be talking about as one of our next topics here.
Thank you.
Was Bill? I think Fred wanted to. Did you want to speak about that?
Leave that slide up.
This one?
Yeah. We've been talking about big solar, and we've been talking about 3 smaller solar programs here. And it's often confusing understanding the differences between them. FIT 100 and FIT 50, the DWP buys 100% of the output of these projects at wholesale. None of the energy from these projects is used directly in a facility. It's not net metering. The third program is net metering, largely residential, some multifamily, and some commercial. There, all the energy is used in a facility, and they're not paid anything for any excess. 3 separate programs. My objections earlier have been to the FIT 100 program because it is fixed pricing, not competitive pricing for $500 million worth of power. We've already stepped through a little over $200 million of that $500 million procurement. Given the success of the FIT 50 program, which was competitively bid, and the pricing they're getting there below 17, 16, 15, 14, or 13 cents, I think we should reconsider whether or not we go competitive. And we can discuss that as part of the January discussions on guidelines and the launch of the third allocation. And quiet success elsewhere is the growth of the net metering program. From this ECAF presentation versus the last, there's been a 16% growth in projected net metering. The other utilities in the state have had even greater success with net metering. So as we think about in-basin solar, we may be able to do this at lower costs than the existing FIT 100 program. And I think we should discuss that in January rather than continue on that topic now.
Good idea.
Mr. President, I would just like to ask that customer service or whoever it is come back in January with what's being done to remedy this problem, this billing problem with, I mean, there's a lot of billing problems,
Let's
but
put that on the agenda for the first
particularly
January,
with
first January.
our solar customers.
We'll report back in January for you on those
Good.
items, on specific to net metered. I can assure you we'll have regular feedback also on how we're doing on our overall customer billing improvements
I'm sure we will.
as we implement this new system.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And congratulations on doing a very good job.
Oh, thank you very much.
Now, we have a related subject that
We did
turns
have
out to be related.
a speaker who wanted
We have
to
a
speak on
speaker-
A
We
as
have
well.
a speaker card on 27A and B that just popped up.
Yeah,
Who might
that's-
that be, Barbara?
That's Mr. Siegel.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution. Basically, there has been training programs published, and they could be available. They may have to be adapted to try to train employees and the customers how to read a bill and what's the difference between energy and power. And even in commercial areas, what's the demand charge difference and what's a power factor charge. And I've seen across the country that's been the real issue. And I've seen some of the utilities that have come across Southern California aren't putting enough time into training new employees. And I've seen one fellow who's in one utility here that has 150 people under him for customer service, and he's an accountant. He doesn't understand the basic physics. So that's the biggest alarm I've seen. And even I've seen field service people in Florida which didn't understand some of the basic issues, and they're field service people in distribution maintenance. So I think a great big emphasis has to go on that. So, in someone that doesn't have high school physics and may have some other non-related background, just doesn't understand some of this stuff, especially the tariff rate payers. So I could be of help to provide some of that information. I'm sure you people know how to do it too, but there's a lot of experience out there in the last 20 years. And the NWPPC in Portland and the Northwestern states has handled this too. So I think one of the major issues, once you finally get your billing straightened out and the training done, my biggest alarm is that a lot of the contractors, I won't mention their names, are taking untrained people to design a solar system. Instead of putting the panels only on the south and west side, they're putting them on the east and north side, and they're not worrying about power production. Most of them are just worrying about lowest capital cost. And there's a lot of misrepresentation about power production. So people are buying systems thinking they're going to reduce their bill by a certain factor, and that will never happen. And the contracting license board in the Secretary of State does not require a certain education level of contractors in the solar business. And the few large ones that are out there are more or less trying to sell people a way that they can put a debt on their house, and then it's going to be net positive capital right away, and they're going to be surprised 6 or 8 years down the road when they found that they've been tricked. So I think there's a lot of issues there that aren't being covered. And, I can try to provide some of that, but it's too much of a topic at this point.
Thank you. Anything more on 27A? 27B, Customer Information System Implementation Update and Presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Grove. I'm the Assistant General Manager of the Customer Service Division. I have with me Campbell Hawkins, who is Director of Customer Operations. The purpose of the report today, it's a very small report. It's quite similar with updated information to the report that was given to the committee, the City Council Committee, Energy and Environmental Committee, and we wanted to update it with some of the recent things that we've been working on as far as stabilizing the new customer system, and then, of course, take any questions that you may have. So with that, I'd like to just give you some background. And I'm going to go over this quickly because I think this is something that everybody's pretty aware of, but I wanted to make sure that I've added a few new things. So this, again, was an almost 40-year-old legacy system. Couldn't do some fundamental things such as net metering. And what's important to note is this was a system that was disparate from all other really customer-related technology systems at the DWP. So I think that's an important thing. We knew that we were treating the customer in a very disconnected way, and this system was part of that issue. The cost of the system was approximately $100 million, and we had some existing payroll. We had employees that we moved off site to work on this project, and the payroll associated with those employees was approximately $63 million. We changed the core billing system, but because of the age of the system, we had many embedded systems that no longer would function with this new technology. This is a more relational database type system, point and click, whereas the older system was a very COBOL language, green screen type of system. So we had to replace many, many other systems. In fact, some very significant systems such as field dispatching system and meter reading routing system, those types of systems. And this billing system provides the ability for us to produce a city bill, and so it's complex. If benchmarking these other types of projects around the country, some are this complex, but very rare. We have 4 different commodities that we put on the bill, and two of those commodities have multi-tiered rates, so it creates very complex billing. Just a recap, we do read our commercial customers' meters every month, and we bill them every month, and the residential customers we read every other month, and we bill them every other month. Again, one of the impetus for the system is to eventually get to a more monthly billing cycle for our residential customers as the city bill grows in size. So a lot of questions have been asked about, how long does it take to stabilize a new billing system? To get to a system where you're really starting to customize and leverage some of the powerful functionality of these systems, you wait till the system is fully stable and vetted, which can be 18 to 24 months. That's why that amount of time has been heard, but the actual billing stabilization is quite a different number. What happens when you do a billing system is you go through the entire billing cycle once, and you vet out all the issues based on the cycle day and where these different reads are located, and if one section is more multi-residential, there's a lot of single-family homes, there's access issues, that type of thing. So a lot of those issues get vetted out the first 60-day cycle, and then the first billing cycle, which in this particular territory is 60 days. After that, we're able to see what all the issues are on those specific cycle days, and then it takes 1 or 2 more billing cycles to clean up the issues that are found on some of those different cycle days. So that's basically, in a manner of speaking, what it takes to stabilize the billing functionality of a new billing system. So what's working? We are generating, it's 40 to 50,000 bills a day are going out the door. We are generating almost the amount of revenue generated. The difference that you see are bills that we are holding back because we see that there's some estimation issues, and I'll go into that a little bit. But basically, we're where the amount of the bills, the quantity, and the revenue part of the bills is working. We have well-trained, the existing staff has been very well-trained. They can navigate the system pretty fluently. We've got some, inherent, when you do a point and click, you have to go to multiple screens. When you have these old legacy systems, some of the transactions would be a little quicker because you would type everything on an existing screen. So we've got some, there are times when we have transactions that take longer than they did in the old system. And our web self-service is up and running. What's not working, we do have, as we're all very well aware, we have very long wait times. I mean, right now, as of today, we start out, 10, 15-minute wait times in the morning, but by the time you get to midday, they're up to about 30-minute wait times. And just clearly too long. And that's directly related to having our staff, on the ground not sufficient. There's no way around that. We have estimated bills that we're really starting to now shrink, and you'll see some graphs in the appendix that we don't have to go to, but we are finally getting our arms around this high estimation thing, which was caused by several different issues. Primarily two issues. One, that we had a lot of meter exchanges, as happens through any month in any utility you have many meter exchanges. But in this particular case, we had many meter exchanges in the usual way, and we also had special programs such as the smart grid program. So we had more meter exchanges than normal right before we converted, and so that causes an issue when you're moving a meter exchange from an old system into a new system when that particular meter hasn't built. So we had some estimations caused around that, and then we had the meter readers had a brand new route optimization software, and so as they went through those routes, the very first 60-day cycle, they had to make sure that they're optimizing those routes. And for meter readers, it's about third time's the charm. By the time they go through that same route the third time, they've really cleaned it up. So we had some routes that weren't getting completed early on. Again, we have just some things. Obviously we residential solar customers, that's top of mind. We're working on that to make sure that there are no billing issues regarding those remaining 300 customers. And then we have some large summary billing customers that it's very careful when you do summary billing customers. You have these what we call parent-child relationships, and we really wanted to make sure before we sent a bill out the door that we had all those parent-child relationships that they converted correctly. So we had a lot of manual touching of those summary bill customers early on. So action steps, which is I'm sure what the board is very concerned about. To decrease the wait times, I already teed up the fact that we're putting on many more people on the phones. We're going to get creative about partnering them up for training, not necessarily going through the full-blown traditional training early on, but in this sort of triage situation, trying to get some people on the phone as fast as possible. We did implement last week a virtual hold, which does help customers not have to sit with their hand holding the receiver, and that's working. We were overwhelmed as we're trying to balance out the system. A lot of people adopted that, which was great. I tested it many times, and what will happen is it'll decrease wait times, and then we'll call customers back even as requested, later into the evening. So it has smoothed out our peak somewhat. But, this between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., it's pretty heavy, and it can get to 30, 40-minute wait times even still. So we're still working through that. We're calling customers back, and when we get a customer on the phone, we have trained our CSRs to do, if it's one of these customers that's calling about payment arrangements, that's pretty straightforward. If they have one of these estimated bill issues, oftentimes the bill is correct, and so it takes a long time to talk a customer through usage patterns, previous year, that type of thing. But when it is an estimated bill that is clearly of one of these issues where the meter exchange didn't get entered into the system and the bill got estimated, we're able to cancel and rebill those customers usually the same day because we have trained folks in the call center to do simple cancel rebills. So we're able to do that. We did halt collections processes, and what that means is we were doing 3 main activities for customers that had failed to pay their bill. One was we were calling and saying, hey, just to remind you the due date is passed, please pay your bill. We were sending them out a final notice saying that you have not paid your bill, and by the 47th day we would be sending them a disconnect notice. What we did that adds a lot of noise to the call center because customers are calling for arrangements. We've done 2 different things. We've stopped those 3 activities for the time being. And what we've also done is on our IVR, we've increased the dollar amount for a past due amount so that customers can self-serve and make payment arrangements on the IVR without having to talk to a representative. So we've done some tweaking in that regard.
I want to explain.
Go ahead.
They don't all know that integrated voice recognition system.
Oh, I'm sorry. When they call up the menu, when they call on the phone, they're able to take an option, make a payment arrangement, and as long as they're within less than $1,000 of a past due amount, we're able to help them make their own payment arrangement without having to talk to a customer service representative.
The interactive voice response system, of IVR, is just the automated attendant that a customer gets when they call into the system.
Right. And I'd like to address Commissioner Barad's, it was a question you asked a couple hours ago, but we were able to, and thank you very much for that as well, we did move the trouble call to the very first option on the interactive voice response recording. I tested that as well, and the other thing that I tested is you can actually just, while the phone, you can just say trouble. You can just sort of yell trouble, and it'll also go, and it's about 30 seconds your call gets answered. So we did move that to the top of the menu.
A separate line, or how does that work?
So you can, it's not a separate line. It's still 1-800 dial DWP. You can either press 1, which will get you right there, or you can just sort of yell or say water trouble, electric trouble. What it does is our automatic call, our router, the technology, those calls go to the top of the queue. They're the very next call that's answered.
So they don't have to wait 30 or 40 minutes?
Not for anybody. The very next representative that hangs up a phone with a customer will get that call. Okay. We also added meter readers. We've put some new meters. We had 6 start on Monday, and to make sure that we get all those routes read, and we get all those actual reads. We've done that. We've continued to optimize system functionality by widening some thresholds where they're not accepting an actual read, they're taking an estimate instead of an actual. So we're doing system functionality tweaking, and then we did have a bona fide issue with the auto pay, because what happens is the auto pay was working, but it was working and taking auto pay out on some of those customers that got those large estimated bills. So what we've instituted, while we're smoothing out the estimated billing issue, we've instituted a daily manual check of anybody that's on auto pay whose previous period for the same time period has exceeded 25%. So we're making sure in the future that nobody gets a large auto pay debit out of their account, and that's happening every single day.
I wanted to ask you a question about estimated bills.
Yes.
Why do you do that? It seems like that's kind of does that work? I mean, what's the rationale behind that?
Estimated bills is an industry standard when, for whatever reason, a meter read is unavailable, an access issue, the meter reader not completing the route that we had talked about, and it can estimate very accurately, again, based upon prior historical information, and you estimate so that you don't have a delayed bill issue. I think previously the legacy system wasn't aggressive from an estimation standpoint, so you had a delayed bill issue instead, and so it's kind of either one of those issues. And the estimation issue, again, when you have historical information in the system, can refer to a prior period to generate a reasonably accurate bill that reflects a customer's historical usage pattern.
So how is that reconciled? In other words, it could be, 2 months later or a month later, it's either over or under?
Yes, when the actual meter read comes in, then there is a reconciliation done from a total usage perspective, although Sharon did mention the different tiers, and so it's because you can't tell exactly how much usage falls in which particular month, it doesn't reconcile to the penny on the tiers, but it does reconcile total usage.
And then the next bill, it's reconciled?
Yes.
That they either get a refund or credit?
Yes.
Or they have to pay more?
That's right.
What's your experience with that? I mean, of your estimated bills, what percentage is right and what's not so right?
You know, when we've spot checked the bills, and again, I'm going to dive into the estimation rules just a little bit, and it gets into the granularity here a little bit, but I think it helps the discussion. The estimation engine, which again is industry standard, follows three principal rules. When a meter read is not available, it first looks to the same period from a year ago to account for seasonality. If that data point or that read is not available, it looks to the immediate prior period to provide the estimate. When we have spot checked our bills, done a sample of those bills, when those two rules are applied, the estimate is pretty darn good, and it produces an accurate bill. Where we've had some challenges is when the estimation process has had to default to the third rule, which when those first two rules can't be used because those data points aren't there, it defaults to a residential class average, an average residential customer. And in those situations, depending upon a customer's actual usage behavior, may be higher or lower than that residential class average. And it's in that small percentage, and generally speaking, 3% or less, is where we've had some difficulties where the bills are dramatically higher or lower than what a customer typically experiences.
So if someone went on vacation, your estimator robot doesn't know that.
That's right.
And that's an industry standard?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you on your PowerPoint, customer service representative staffing levels consistent with industry benchmarks. What does that mean?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Customer service representative staffing levels consistent with industry benchmarks even after considering staff shrinkage. Can you explain that?
Sure. We have certainly through this process we've tried to look at, do we have the appropriate staffing levels in place? And one data point that we looked at was a Chartwell study that was produced, I think, a couple of years ago in 2011 that gave a benchmark for the number of calls that on average across the industry a CSR takes. That number is around 12,000 calls per year. And when you look at our staffing levels, it seems to suggest, just based upon that one data point, and certainly it requires some additional analytics on it, but just based upon that one data point, it does seem to suggest, you know, notwithstanding unique circumstances that we're in today, that our staffing levels are appropriate.
Well, so, all right, so then today, I would think that you're not, something's wrong either with the benchmark or the way it's playing out.
Well, I do think there is we're in a unique situation, which is why we're adding the additional representatives that we talked about previously.
Again, I think the key point here is that as we go through the system, go through fixing these estimated bills that are, it's a small percentage, but even though it's a small percentage, it's a large number, large absolute number, right, of these estimated bills that were tied to principally to these meter changeovers. Each time we go through those meter changeovers and fix that, we fix that problem. But until we do, we have the duration of the calls is so much longer. So once we get to a point where we fix through that problem, which gets literally better every day, then we won't have this duration of calls, and the wait time. The wait time will go down. The number of customer service representatives that we have will ultimately be sufficient. We're adding some temporaries to help pick up that. Frankly, yes, we should have added some temporaries more. We underestimated the additional temps that we put on. We should have done more. We're doing more. That will help fix this issue. Once we get through this large duration issue that we have right now, and that shrinks down, we believe that we'll get the wait times will get back down, and the head count that we have should be adequate to get us back down to a proper duration.
What's your schedule? I mean, what do you, in terms of getting all this kind of in place?
The schedule for, we're bringing the meter readers on now, we're bringing the customer service representatives on in January. There is no, we're not going to, we're going to keep these folks here until we provide the appropriate service level for our customers. I do believe that the bulk of these billing issues that we've been discussing, including the solar residential, which is near and dear to my heart, that particular one as well, that will, by about the third billing cycle, so 6 months in, we're now 3 months into it, will really be smooth. But at the same time, we have stopped the credit and collections activities, so even if it does seem like the wait times are now down to zero, we're still not going to forego that workforce, because then we have to slowly ramp up the credit and collections activities. So for the foreseeable future, until we serve our customers appropriately, I don't intend to lower the staff.
And have you cleared up all the estimated billing snafus?
Not completely. We're still in process of working that issue.
Yeah, we haven't. We're rounded the corner on it, but we know what they are. I mean, we've identified them, but some of them really are going to require going into every single account and making sure it's clean before it bills. And so, because of those remaining, a lot of them aren't one massive rule to fix them all. They're like individual. Sometimes it's a meter configuration. What happened with this system, and I started out this presentation letting you know that we had many disparate customer systems. This became the system of record. This was a big step for us because there's a lot of rigor and rules around putting in the appropriate meter configuration in our system, because this is now our meter inventory system. It wasn't before. So we got away with a lot in the old system. We could actually bill 2 separate customers at 2 separate addresses with the exact same meter number. Okay, you can't you're not allowed to do that. But we used to be. So now we got a new set of rules, and we have to be really clean. And so some of the issues around the estimated, we have to go in and we have to make sure we're working with power. We're really collaborating. It has forced some great collaboration, but we have to make sure that that exact configuration of that exact meter is right across our entire department. So we know what the issues are, we just haven't cleaned them all up yet.
And you're going to collaborate with solar as well?
Absolutely.
I'd like to add a comment. I think that you will find when these system rollouts occur, there are 2 kinds of errors that you don't know for a couple billing cycles. The people who had an estimate that was very favorable to them are not calling, and they will be surprised when they get their next bill. Really, until you see 2 actual reads in a row, you won't know how much of the history may have been mismatched to the account, and that's another source of error. I think of these as ripple effects, and so boosting staffing until you're through all the ripple effects and the full shakedown of the system, is managing the staffing level as you discover the problems. But some of them won't reveal themselves until you have 2 actual reads in a row, and because these billing cycles are 2 months long, that's actually a relatively long time for people to be faced with 100 calls when they come in the door, and there's only 5 of them, and you have a customer like I got right before Thanksgiving who's tried to work out his solar net metering for 6 months. Well, that individual doesn't know anything about the Herculean effort going on to change the billing system. He was having a problem before any of that even started. And so then there's the backlog created of those resolutions that aren't happening as they otherwise would have. So it's a complex staffing problem when you don't know the full extent of the billing issues until you get through a couple cycles.
Other comments, other questions? Thank you for all of your Herculean efforts. We appreciate them a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our open items agenda. I have just one administrative matter that I'll mention, and I'll ask, I don't know whether this should be done in open session or whether Barbara can deal with it. I would like to see if we can alter the date of our first January meeting. Can that be something Barbara can email people about, or is that something that we could... And I'd just like to ask the general manager if we were to either bypass the first meeting or just push it back a week, would it complicate our lives in any way in terms of we'll have another meeting in December, will we have a huge series of urgent items in early January as well?
I think as long as we can plan for it in advance, I think we'll be fine. And particularly, that's why I wanted to make sure we had our second December, so we didn't start going to January with this huge pile.
Okay, so for my fellow commissioners, I'm going to have trouble being here on the first Tuesday, and if we can push it a week or miss that one, I'm going to make that request depending on your calendars. So I just pass that along.
I think Barbara can,
and then Barbara
do a
will
quick
follow
poll
up
for them later. We'll see if that.
Okay, Council, what do we do to go into closed session?
So at this
Did
point,
we file number 27C?
Oh, we did not. Is there any discussion on 27C? Any further discussion? It is.
You don't need to vote, you just have to note and file.
It's filed.
Oh.
Council?
so at this point, we will recess in a closed session, and in accordance with the government code, we will report any final reportable action.
Do we anticipate coming back into open session
not.
today? Okay. Thank you. Off to closed session.